Welcome to Propeller Breeze, the show for student pilots, sim fans, and everyone chasing that first solo and beyond. All information in this podcast is for entertainment and general knowledge only. Always verify with certified flight instructors or regulatory authorities before attempting anything mentioned here.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something just a little bit different.
Yeah, a bit of a pivot from the usual.
Right. Usually we take a really broad topic, like macro, tech trends, or history, and we narrow it down. But today we are zooming in on just a single, highly specific control in the cockpit.
And it is the one control you absolutely think you understand.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
But according to the data we're looking at today, you probably don't.
It's kind of the classic Dunning-Kruger control, isn't it? Like you think it does one simple thing and then under pressure, it actually does the exact opposite.
Exactly. We are talking about the elevator, the quote-unquote up and down stick, and we are breaking down a really fascinating, albeit pretty dense technical paper today. It's titled Elevator Dynamics and the Energy Control Curve.
Which, I'll admit, sounds entirely like the title of a lecture you'd actively fight to stay awake for in ground school.
It really does. It sounds so dry. But here's the hook, especially for the student pilots listening. And I know we have a lot of you tuning in specifically for this kind of flight training breakdown.
Yeah, this is directly for you guys.
This document claims that misunderstood elevator physics is the primary reason beginners struggle with landings, with steep turns, and in the absolute worst cases, stall and spin accidents.
And it's not just a bold claim from the author, right? It's pure physics. The core mission of our deep dive today is to move you away from this ingrained idea that the elevator is for steering the nose up or down, like a car on a hill.
Right, getting away from the video game mindset.
Exactly. We need to move toward the idea that the elevator is actually an energy management tool.
Right, and to really do that, to grasp that, we have to talk about the curve.
Capital T, capital C.
Yeah. The source text focuses heavily on two main concepts, which are excess power and total drag. And it uses two specific charts, figure 4-4 and figure 4-5, to prove that your right hand, the hand on the yoke, isn't actually controlling your altitude directly.
It's controlling drag.
It's controlling drag, which is wild.
And once you see this graph in your head, like once you can really visualize figure 4-4,
Yeah.
You honestly can't unsee it. It fundamentally changes how you fly the airplane.
So let's start with the basics before we get into the specific coordinate points on the curve. The whole document relies entirely on the power required curve. So for the listener trying to visualize this right now, I want you to just picture a big letter U on a graph.
Right. Let's paint the picture for them. The bottom axis, the horizontal one, is your airspeed. So you're going fast on the right side, slow on the left side. And then the vertical axis is power required.
Or basically just how much horsepower you need from the engine just to keep the airplane flying level.
Exactly. And the reason it forms that U shape is because of drag. And this is where the document gets really specific, because it breaks drag into two different enemies.
And they act in opposite ways, right?
Completely opposite.
See, this was the first real stumbling block for me when I was reading the source. And I think it is for a lot of student pilots too. Because I usually just think, well, drag is wind resistance.
Right.
If I go fast, drag is high. If I go slow, drag is low. Simple.
But that's only half the story. That is what the text calls parasitic drag.
Parasitic.
Yeah. Just think of sticking your hand out the window of your car while you're driving down the highway.
Okay, right. The faster I drive, the harder the wind physically pushes my hand backward.
Precisely. So on the right side of our U graph, the high-speed side drag is high.
Yeah.
Because the physical wind resistance is high.
Yeah.
But look at the left side of the graph,
The slow side.
the slow side. You are flying slowly so that wind resistance on the metal airframe is essentially gone. So why is the curve high again over there? Why is it a U and not just a straight diagonal slash?
That's the induced drag.
Yes. And the text defines this very clearly. Induced drag is the penalty of lift.
The penalty of lift. I love that phrasing.
It's so accurate. When you fly slow, you have to pitch the airplane's nose up just to keep flying, right? You present the whole flat belly of the wing to the wind. You are essentially plowing through the air to stay aloft.
So fast flight equals pure wind resistance. Slow flight equals plowing resistance.
Perfect way to put it. And right in the middle, right at the bottom of that U shape, is your sweet spot, the point of absolute minimum drag. That's usually your best glide speed.
Okay, so I have the visual now. I've got the U shape. I can see the two types of drag fighting each other on either side. Let's fly the actual profile that the document lays out. The text starts us on what it calls the front side of the power curve.
And it calls this specific state Point 1. Let's set the scene for the listener.
Okay.
You are in a Cessna,
Uh-huh.
or maybe a Piper. You are just cruising along. Throttle is set to a normal cruise power. You are flying fast.
So I'm hanging out on the right side of the U-graph.
Yes, high speed,
Yeah.
low angle of attack. The nose is relatively flat against the horizon. Now look at your energy state in this scenario. The document labels this specific coordinate as point A, and it notes something really interesting. It says you have very little excess power.
Wait, little excess power?
Yeah.
But if I'm cruising fast, don't I have a lot of power? Like, my engine is absolutely roaring right now.
You are producing a lot of power.
Yeah.
Your engine might be running at 75 or 80%. But the drag, that parasitic wind resistance pushing against the windshield, the wheels, the struts, is eating almost all of that power just to maintain that fast speed.
So I have no surplus.
Exactly. You have no surplus.
I see. It's like living paycheck to paycheck. I'm earning a really high salary, but I'm spending every single dollar of it just to pay my massive rent.
That is a great analogy. You are just breaking even on your energy. So here is the experiment the text proposes. You decide to pull back on the yoke. Just a bit. What happens?
Well, intuitively, the nose comes up and I start to climb.
You do climb.
Right.
But why?
Because I pulled the up lever.
And that is exactly the steering mindset we need to break today.
Right.
The text explains it entirely differently. It called this action a brief energy exchange.
A brief energy exchange.
Yes. You are trading kinetic energy, which is your speed, for potential energy, which is your altitude. You pull up, and the airplane inherently slows down.
Okay, that tracks with the physics. I trade my speed for height, just like coasting up a steep hill on a bicycle.
But here's the magic trick of the front side of the curve. As you slow down from that cruise speed, what happens to that parasitic drag we just talked about?
Well, if I slow down, the wind resistance drops.
Correct. You are moving from the high drag right side of the graph down toward the efficient bottom of the U.
Okay, so my total drag is actively decreasing.
It is, but, and this is the absolute key to the whole paper, you haven't touched the throttle. Your engine is still pumping out the exact same horsepower it was a second ago.
Oh, wow. Oh, I see where this is going. If my engine is creating the same power, but the drag fighting against it just got smaller.
You suddenly have a surplus. The equation thrust minus drag suddenly becomes a positive number.
So going back to the analogy, I basically gave myself a raise by moving to a cheaper apartment and lowering my rent.
That is exactly it. The text calls this creating positive excess power. It labels this point B. By pulling back and deliberately slowing the airplane down, you actually unlock the energy you needed to sustain a climb.
That is actually incredibly counterintuitive when you say it out loud. I didn't add any gas to climb, I just made the airplane more efficient.
And that is the strict definition of flying on the front side of the curve. You are efficient because you are actively reducing waste. The text says it very clearly. With this newly found excess power, the airplane can now sustain a climb or turn without losing energy.
Okay. I like the front side. The front side makes sense to me. It's logical. Pull back, you go up. Life is good. It perfectly matches what I learned in basically every video game I've ever played.
It is the happy place. It's where we spend roughly 90% of our actual flight time. But here's the catch. You can't land on the front side of the curve.
Because you'd be going way too fast.
Way too fast. To land, you eventually have to slow down.
Which brings us to the backside of the power curve. And I gotta say, the text gets a little more ominous in this section.
It absolutely should. Because this is where student pilots get into real trouble. This is where the rules of physics completely flip on you.
So let's move over to point 3 on the chart. I'm slow now. I'm setting up for my landing. Or maybe I'm doing slow flight practice with my flight instructor.
Right. You are now firmly on the left side of that U-graph. You are flying slower than that efficient bottom point.
So the wind resistance, the parasitic drag, is basically 0 at this point.
It's negligible. But to keep the airplane in the air at, say, 55 or 60 knots, you have the nose pitched way up into the air. Your angle of attack is very high.
I'm plowing, so the induced drag is high.
Sky high. The text notes that at point 3, you are back in a situation with, quote, little to no excess power. It labels this as point C. Your engine might be working really hard, but all that power is being used just to fight the massive induced drag of holding that high nose attitude.
Okay, so let's run the scenario. I'm low and I'm slow. I'm on final approach to the runway. And suddenly I see I'm sinking a little too fast. The runway looks like it's physically moving up in the windshield. I can tell I'm going to land short.
This is the critical life or death moment.
My brain instantly screams, pull up, I don't want to hit the ground. I pull back on the stick.
And remember, on the front side of the curve, That instinct worked. It reduced your drag. But based on the text, what happens here at point 3?
It says, well, it basically implies I'm just digging a hole,
If you pull back at point 3, you increase the angle of attack even more.
which increases the plowing. It increases the induced drag.
You get a massive spike in drag. You just drastically increase the rent you have to pay, but you didn't add any income. You have zero excess power to pay for it.
So the airplane literally can't climb.
It can't even maintain its altitude. It actually sinks faster.
That is terrifying. The exact control I used to go up is now making me go down.
That is known as the reverse command region. And the text provides the solution, but I will warn you right now, it requires overriding every survival instinct in your body.
What's the fix?
You have to push forward.
I'm sinking toward the ground, the trees are getting bigger in the window, and the book says push the nose down.
You have to. The text calls this a grief energy exchange descent. Yes, you will lose a few feet of altitude initially, but by pushing the nose down, what happens to your airspeed?
I speed up.
And as you speed up, what happens to all that massive induced drag?
The plowing stops, the drag just drops away.
Exactly. You move from the highly inefficient point 3 back down toward the efficient bottom of the bucket. You reduce the drag, which, just like before, creates positive excess power.
So I have to dive to get the energy to fly.
Dive to fly. It's really the only way out of the backside of the curve once you're stuck there.
The text uses a specific phrase here that really stuck with me. It says this forward elevator input is absolutely critical to prevent unintentional excessive deceleration or sink rate.
An irreversible deceleration. That is the phrase from the paper that keeps me up at night.
Irreversible.
Meaning, you have created so much drag because you panicked and pulled back so hard that even if you shove the throttle to full power, the engine cannot overcome it. You will hit the ground before the physics can catch up.
Wow, so let's recap this duality because it's just so crucial for the listener to grasp. The elevator on the front side is a drag reducer by slowing you down. But on the back side, the elevator is a drag reducer by speeding you up.
You absolutely nailed it. In both cases, your ultimate goal is to move toward the bottom of the U. But the physical direction you move the stick depends entirely on where you started on the graph.
That is a huge insight. The stick doesn't control up or down, it controls efficiency.
Right. But we actually aren't done yet.
There's more.
Because there is a third personality to the elevator that the paper covers.
Yeah.
Everything we just talked about is flying in a straight line.
Yeah.
But what about turning?
Oh, right. This was the part of the document that surprised me the most. The section titled The Elevator as an Energy Brake.
It's a concept fighter pilots know intimately, but student pilots rarely think about it until their instructor actively scares them with it in the plane.
The text sets up a very specific scenario here, a level turn.
Okay, so to turn an airplane, you have to bank. You roll the wings over.
Right.
But when you bank, you lose a portion of your vertical lift. The lift vector is pointing sideways now, pulling you through the turn. So if you don't do anything else, the nose just drops.
So to stay level in the turn, I have to pull back on the yoke.
You pull back to increase the overall lift. The text points out that you are increasing what's called the load factor. You physically feel heavier in your seat.
That's the G-force pulling on me.
That is the load factor. Now, think back to our definition of induced drag from earlier. It's the penalty of lift. So if you demand more lift from the wing to make a tight turn,
I am paying a much bigger penalty.
a massive penalty. Look at figure 4-5 in the source. It shows the power required curve for a 60-degree bank turn, which is a pretty steep turn for a student.
Yeah, looking at it, it's not just a U anymore. It looks like a vertical wall.
Basically, yeah. The drag curve just spikes violently upward. And the text makes a really bold comparison here that I think is worth reading directly. It says that pulling back in a steep turn will quickly slow the airplane down and decrease total energy more rapidly than by just reducing the throttle to idle.
Wait, let me make sure I heard that right. Pulling back slows you down faster than chopping the engine power.
Yes, it is a drastically more effective brake than the engine throttle.
That is incredible. So if I'm in a steep turn and I just yank back on the yoke to force the nose around the horizon.
You are deploying a massive aerodynamic air brake. You are just dumping your energy overboard.
And if I don't add engine power to compensate.
You stall, or worse, you spin. Because you've drained the airplane of all its kinetic energy in a matter of seconds. You're asking the wing for lift that you simply cannot pay for.
This completely explains why my flight instructor sounds like a broken record every time we do steep turns, just yelling, add power, add power, add power.
They aren't just trying to be loud to stress you out. They are trying to match the massive drag spike you're actively creating with your right hand.
Okay, so we have these three very distinct behaviors. Let's try to synthesize this into the rules of energy control that the source hints at near the end. Because if you're a student pilot listening right now, you need something really simple to remember when the headset is actually on and you're flying.
Let's connect the dots for them. The elevator is not a simple up-down switch. It is a highly dynamic tool for manipulating the thrust minus drag equation.
So it's basically assisting the throttle.
Correct. So, rule 1. On the front side of the curve, when you have high-speed pulling, the elevator up reduces drag. It moves you toward efficiency.
Got it. Rule 2. On the back side of the curve when you're at low speed, pushing the elevator down reduces drag. It physically saves you from the drag trap.
And rule 3. In a turn, pulling the elevator up rapidly increases drag. It acts as an aggressive energy drain.
It is honestly amazing how the exact same physical control input, just pulling back on a piece of plastic, can have completely opposite effects on your energy state depending entirely on where you are in the sky.
That is the context dependence of flight dynamics. And the source finishes by saying that applying these distinct roles leads to, quote, simple rules for proper throttle elevator coordination.
It really changes how you look at the yoke. It's not just about pointing the nose at the clouds or the dirt. It's about actively managing the invisible aerodynamic forces acting on the airframe.
And for the student pilot listening right now, this is the absolute key to mastering your landings. When you are on that final approach, you are actively transitioning to the backside of the curve. You need to intimately understand that your pitch controls your airspeed, and by extension, your drag state and your engine power controls your altitude.
So if you get slow on final and you just blindly pull back,
You increase the drag, you sink significantly faster, and you might experience that irreversible deceleration the test warns us about.
which is really just a polite scientific way of saying you crash short of the runway.
Essentially, yes. But if you actually understand this text, you know that if you get slow, you must accept making that nose-down input to regain your safe energy margin.
It's survival physics.
It really is.
Well, this has been a fantastic breakdown. I genuinely feel like I understand Figure 4-4 way better now. It's not just some confusing lines on a graph. It's practically a physical map of what to do with my hands in the cockpit.
That's the beauty of looking at the data. These charts aren't just academic theory, they are totally operational.
So to wrap this up for our listener today, the student pilot who is maybe driving to the airport right now for a lesson, what is the single biggest thing they should do differently on their very next flight?
Stop looking at the altimeter as a height gauge that's controlled by the stick. I want you to start looking at your airspeed indicator as a drag gauge.
Oh, a drag gauge. I really like that.
If that needle is too low, your drag is high. Don't pull. If that needle is too high, your drag is also high. Don't push too hard. Find the middle. Try to constantly find the bottom of that bucket.
And realize that just doing nothing sometimes isn't an option. If you are on the back side of the curve, you have to act.
You have to fully commit to the nose-down input. It is the only way home.
I want to leave everyone with a final, slightly provocative challenge to think about. We talked a lot today about the rules for energy control. The text actually concludes by saying, these dynamics lead to simple rules for proper throttle elevator coordination.
Giving them a little homework assignment.
Exactly. Before you open your textbook to the next chapter or before you get in the plane next, I want you to close your eyes and visualize that U-shaped curve we talked about. Visualize yourself at the top left of it. You're slow and you're in high drag. Now, visualize yourself entering a turn. Based purely on the physics we just discussed, can you predict exactly what your left hand on the throttle needs to do the exact moment your right hand moves the stick?
Don't just react to what the airplane does. Anticipate the physics. If you know the drag is coming, beat it with the throttle.
And that right there is the fundamental difference between a passenger and a pilot.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Fly safe.
And fly smart.
That's it for this episode. Keep your wings level, your brain sharp, and catch you next time in the pattern. Thanks for riding with Propeller Breeze.